do you not think Leo looks like that guy on Instagram who cooks and looks like he's got people in his basement?
A few of my captives have been requesting a Vietnamese sub.
Your fresh egg with orange juice. How you doing?
What's up, Rebel? My name's Willy.
My name is Leo.
I'm from the UK.
I'm from the US.
We are a couple. We are queer. And we out here. Today, we are going to be live reacting to a Jubilee, which is openly queer versus closeted queer, which is going to be exciting. Closeted people are literally like blurred up, so like this is going to be super respectful. We've both been in both positions before, haven't we?
Yeah. So if you're not someone who is queer or knows about the closeted experience, yeah, we've both been like not out and then came out in our own respective timelines. So we, yeah, like you said, we have lived both lives, as you could say. And this to me sounds so intriguing just because there are so many differences in the lived experiences of someone who's out and able to express themselves freely versus someone who's in the closet having to hide who they are. So I am so interested in what is going to come out of this discussion.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's
get into it.
Today I'll be moderating this middle ground episode of Closeted versus Openly Queer. For anonymity, the closeted queer side prefers to have their faces blurred, and the rest of the cast and crew have agreed to respect their privacy. The first prompt is, coming out has a price. Can the agreeers please step forward?
I grew up in a Mormon family, and being queer is not a thing. Like they say, there are no gay Mormons, just people with same-sex attraction. They won't even call it gay. It actually didn't even occur to me till I was in my 30s and I had left the church that I could be queer. And it was really, really hard. There's a huge price to pay. I was married to a man and I had 3 kids with him. I had to break up my family. I had to break somebody's heart that I loved, that I cared for, and change my kids' lives forever and my whole family. Huge price. But the only decision that I could ever make.
That was quite, she threw us, we haven't actually got their pronouns, but they threw us directly into it there. Do you feel like coming out has a price?
I think, yeah. I think no matter what situation you're in, being in a society where coming out is necessary, you know, the reason why we have to come out is because the fact of who we are changes the way that we live our life, and the way that others allow us to live our life. So unfortunately, yeah, it does have a price no matter what situation you come from. And especially in cases like the one we've just heard about, you know, one where you're kind of oppressed by religious beliefs, you know, certain social rules, or, you know, communal.
I'm going to ask a very controversial question.
Yeah.
Do you think it's selfish for someone to enter into a relationship knowing that they don't love this way? Like a family is then broken up because it's like, you know what, I've got to choose me, I've got to be who I really am. Do you think that's selfish? Do you think that's like, the selfishness could be like, you know, justified by society's too much pressuring, like let's focus on that instead of the people who have to do this? Or do you think there's a level of selfishness that's attached to, because the person could be bi, but I'm just saying, let's say they're not. Do you think it's selfish to have a beard? For those of you who don't know what a beard means, it means like having someone to present as a heterosexual partnership.
That's a difficult question.
Right.
That's juicy.
That do really give you teeth so early on.
Yeah. It's difficult because, I mean, on the one hand, it makes sense that that could be said, you know, of like, why would you put people through this if you know that this isn't what you feel in your heart? But of course, then going back to what we were discussing in the first question about, like, you know, coming out does come with a price, and sometimes that price can be really scary for people. And that's not to say that it's okay or that it completely negates other people's feelings in the situation, because like this first speaker said, they had to, you know, break the heart of their partner who they did love and care for. They had to change the lives of their children and the home that they grew up in and live in. It's a very, very difficult position for everyone involved.
Sorry, our cat's
Yeah.
going crazy, y'all.
Yeah, girl, what is it?
Just gonna add in there. It's like you said, it's a really difficult one. I actually don't know what the answer is to that. I think it's selfish if you are the person involved and that's how you feel. Who am I to come in and be like, no, it's not selfish for you.
Yeah.
I know your family's been changed, but no, think about them. Like, it's selfish depending on what perspective you're looking at and who has the mic. Standing on the outside and never being in that position, and honestly never will be in that position. I personally know I don't have the capacity to start a family and do this knowing that that's not real. I don't necessarily think that's fair on anyone, but you ask that person and you ask everyone involved if you could go back and not have those kids, they would all say no, we'd still have them. So something beautiful came out of it, regardless of like whatever. Let's move on.
To take such a huge step, a huge leap, to be able to be true to yourself, of course. It's something that I aspire to do one day, inshallah. I'm Muslim, so in the Islamic community, being gay is very much of a sin, and it becomes really hard for me to try to have open conversations with my parents because they don't know that I'm queer at all. They don't even know I'm here. So like, woo!
Let's quickly discuss that. Him specifically being Muslim. I think that's so interesting because I know for a fact there are like we have a kid who's basically a mummy's girl, so she will just climb all over me. Daddy's gonna have you now, okay?
Yeah, you can sit with us, okay? Mama's right there.
So basically, I know like when Twitter was called Twitter and I refused to call it anything else, I remember there being like accounts like Muslims are queer and queer Muslims and stuff, and it has to be so politicized and it has to be so intentional because of how much slack there is within that religion. I mean, non-slack there is within that religion. The price to pay for being Muslim and queer is severely high. Like, you have to be so brave to do that. So yeah, I was saying, like, to that extent, maybe then would I call that person selfish or having to do that? But I just know that the stakes are so much higher. I know people talk about Christianity, you know, religion, thou shalt not lie with this and all that stuff. But for me, Islam has always felt more, it feels more punishable in that sense. I don't know if you've ever got that sense.
Yeah, that's definitely something I can say I've observed as well. I think you're right. And it's a very good point to make, you know, that based on your upbringing, your background, your religious beliefs, everything, we do all have different experiences, and there are so many different nuances that go into a queer experience that, you know, that's like, it's just so unique to everyone, and there are so many things that maybe we don't think about or experience ourselves that others do, you know. And so there's really no way to, like, in the realm of trying to create blanket statements or rules about coming out or being queer and, you know, living as yourself. Like, there's so many different experiences that are had that it's not even feasible to try to come up with a rule book or you know, specific type of like timeline or something that you have to do. I do understand what you mean. I've always noticed that the stakes always feel higher, but I would love to hear from Muslims themselves. Like, I'm not a Muslim, so who am I? But I've always felt that way, you know, as someone who was raised religious. I was raised originally as a Jehovah's Witness, so like I've done religion, bro. I've done that part of life, and I've always felt like Islam, they did not come to play. And so the idea of, like, for example, I've always thought, like, Christianity, you can have gay priests, Catholicism, you can have gay this, you can have gay that. A lot of churches are trying to get more
you know, more modern and stuff as time goes on. But I don't know if you're going to get that in Islam. You're not going to get, you know,
inclusive places of worship
in a mosque.
And,
I don't know, but I don't know that. So let us know. But sorry,
that would be really great. I mean, the thing is that I do know that the queer Muslim community is very wide-reaching and very strong in itself. So this isn't to give any sort of lack of recognition to the amount of queer Muslims that are practicing and able to be themselves. I think it's really cool and really brave of every single person that's able to do that. So in that sense, like thinking of that generation and those people, I think it's possible that maybe, you know, people within those communities can create those spaces more as time goes on. Like that's the hope for everyone, I think. Yeah. That we can just make the world more inclusive as time goes on. Yeah.
I know there's like a huge divide within the community of there are people who don't believe like you can be queer and Muslim because they believe just being queer in itself is haram, and so that in itself means that you can't be Muslim. And then there's people who are queer and Muslim and proudly so of I love Allah, I practice, I pray, you know, and I fast, I do all the things I need to do, and I'm still queer. Yeah. And I agree with them. Yeah. You can be queer Muslim. You can be queer in whatever you want.
Of course, yeah. I think it's, you know,
She's gonna fall asleep, guys. We're so sorry.
Yeah, she's just gonna be here. She's just the baby. And she needs to be baby for a bit. But obviously going off of like, I have no history personally with like the Muslim faith and all the practices that go into it. I have background in Christianity. And so obviously that is a more widespread vocal group sometimes when it comes to anti-queerness and stuff in terms of like news coverage, you know, so it's something that, you know, is very prevalent, but at the same time there is sort of that gap being breached of creating queer Christian spaces, you know, and allowing for the interlinkings of those communities to have their space to be themselves. And that's what I really hope happens for other communities as well. Yeah,
I agree.
It's hard to feel loved by someone who doesn't know that you're queer.
Just a little background about me. I'm actually Mormon, and I'm going to school currently at a church school. So I do feel like, I don't know what to call it. I wouldn't say like fully love, but I do feel like people like to be my friend and hang out with me. But if they knew this information about me, would they really love me? Would they really be there for me? It's just hard to have that always in the back of your head.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Of not knowing whether people are going to accept you once you do come out, of knowing whether, because that's the thing, like some people literally will be like, oh, you're queer. All right, well, that love thing that I gave you before, that's run out now. That's gonna stop. Like regardless of whether I'm your parent and I literally gave birth to you, I'm not with that. So I'm out. Yeah, which I think was ridiculous.
It is. Yeah. And even in like in the social spaces of like school, like she's talking about, like kids can be so exclusionary just for the dumbest reasons. Like one day you guys are best friends, and then if she were to come out, like who's to say that her best friend wouldn't then all of a sudden find a new best friend, you know? Or suddenly, like, I know with queer girls there's a lot of like hesitation, and with queer boys as well, about like your same-sex friends having the hesitation to be your friend after you come out, because they're like, oh well, now they always want to know, do you have a crush on me, do you like me, do you see me in that kind of way, and they act differently with you because of it. And that's so, like, it's so unfair. And
I've only had one experience like that, you know, because I remember I'll come out really late. Like, I didn't realise I liked girls until really late. And then I told one of my friends, and they were like, I am literally so disgusted by this. Like, if I ever see you, I will literally kill you. Like, it was a lot. And then I just block them. Yeah. But, and I never spoke to them again. And that's the only experience I've ever had like that. Like, every other experience has been like, cool. Yeah. Do you fancy me? Like, if someone says to me, like, if one of my friends says, do you fancy me? and I say no, they would be so hurt. Like, I have such a different friendship. They'd be like, why don't you fancy me? Like, my friends are so, like, open, and it's so important to surround yourself around people who are open, just in general. This is, like, advice for people who are also closeted. You don't need to be with, you know, you need to make sure that to some extent your morals align, because these things do matter. You know, it's like getting in a relationship with someone who doesn't want kids and all you want is kids. At some point, these things are going to come up. You might find that there are people who, even within those religious spaces, they don't think that way. Religion isn't this overarching blanket statement for, hey, otherwise you yourself are in that community, you know? And I'm not coming for you, because I understand how hard it is, especially someone with a religious background, but like, to some extent, we need to have those conversations, and a lot of them can't just be based on assumptions. We have to have those talks. There are plenty of examples to show us why having those conversations don't work, but there are also plenty of examples to show us why they do. So I hope this person, whoever they are, takes the moment to just like look around, have conversations, get to know what people really think about these subject matters, even if you bring them up as a third party hypothetical, you know, if this happened, what would you think? You know, dip your toe in, dip your toe. So draining being not you, you know what I mean? So the effort to pretend. I remember pretending a lot. Like, it's so draining.
Oh, it is.
Oh my God.
Even like the mental like steps that are taken when you have to like omit things about yourself to people. You know, like having to filter out, okay, what parts of my life and myself do I say in these moments and with these people? And then you have to like store that in your head to understand the types of relationships that you have to have with these individuals. And you become a different version of yourself in order to protect yourself with each individual person, because you have to go on a case-by-case basis of what is safe for me to share. And it creates so much like emotional and mental work that is so unnecessary, especially for someone who's in school, who's a kid, who shouldn't be, you know, worrying about having to maintain their image in order to just have friends.
And then some people would argue, well, pardon me, sorry, your queerness shouldn't be your entire personality, so if someone doesn't like it, it shouldn't be an issue, you should just be able to just like move forward. And it's like, no, we don't get to debate my literal identity. We can debate whether ketchup belongs in the fridge or the cupboard, and that's as far as it goes, darling.
Yeah, I had like a meltdown. It was kind of crazy, but I finally came out to my sister and she just gave me a hug, and it was like probably the best hug I've ever had in my life.
Hey!
Yay.
Sorry, that just makes me so happy.
Oh, okay. I love that. I know she was going through a really rough time, and so hearing that like at least she was brought to a place when she like could feel acceptance, and especially from a family member. Big up to all those sisters and all the siblings who accept their siblings who are queer. You're great. And you know, I think it's so important that like people get that acceptance from the people closest to them.
I really hate that the stakes are often that high of like, do you want a straight alive or a dead queer? Like, I hate that. That's like, I've even utilized that phrasing because I've had to, and I don't like that. I hate that the stakes are that high, and that queer people really would rather die in the closet, and because they can't live as themselves, they would rather push that unaliveness so they can just exit the world without having to fake it. And I do really feel like the stakes should never be that high, and it's scary that it is, but the fact that it is means that none of this should be debatable. You don't have to agree with anything, but we can't have conversations that are so unimportant to some people that they can just throw it away, and so important to other people that they're willing to unalive themselves. The stakes are so different for others, so that's why I'm like, surely some people need to stay in their lane. Like, I don't know, there's certain things that I don't F with in this world, right? But I can sleep at night knowing it doesn't really bother me. And so I just find it so strange. I think it's the difference between going, I don't actually agree with this for my own religious purposes, and I'm an outright homophobia. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna make someone's life worse for being queer. Go get a hobby. Honestly, people need to just like sign up for Roblox or something.
Honestly.
I'm tired of it.
Do you ever find yourself trying to predict like how people would respond if you came out to them? I feel like before I came out, it was like everybody had like a little percentile hovering above their head where I would be like, you're like an 87% chance it'll go okay. You're like a 30% chance, like this is bound to tank. And I feel like that act of trying to predict like, how's this gonna go was part of the stress even for me of being like, I don't know how much you love me because that percentile keeps changing.
Right? The justifications are a mess.
Yeah. So, like, that's a really good point of when you're debating coming out or when you're in that space of filtering parts of who you are based on certain people. That sort of percentage thing is such a good visualization of that, because you do take in every bit of information and you're kind of like, okay, so based on these jokes that you made, and then but you also didn't laugh at this person's joke that they made, but then okay, you said that really ignorant thing, but okay, then a month later you said this really cool thing. Like, all of that adds up.
We're watching.
Yeah.
We're like,
it goes into your ally score, and we're like, okay, based on this, you are a 7 out of 10 ally. This will be fine. Or
we can come out to this one.
Yeah, or it's like, okay, based on this, you're about a 2 out of 10 ally. Like, you got some work to do before we can have that chat. Like, it depends on who they are. And
I think that's so funny, like how you actually do justify them. Yeah, you'll be like, oh my gosh, he loved like a joke, but like he's like laughing with us. Oh my god, ally, I'm gonna come out to him. Like, it really do be like that. If you are someone who's watching this as a a cis heterosexual person who doesn't align within this community at all, and you are also looking for ways to maybe just be a voice if you need to, just let people know that you know where you line up. If you hear a joke that is within our community and you're with us and you're geeking with us, that's enough to let us know you're an ally. It doesn't have to be like, I support you to the end, I will be there every March. It doesn't have to be like that.
I love you so much.
It could be like that.
Well, it could be like that. But there is a line where it gets to be like, okay, it's okay. Like, I'm just gay. Like, it's cool. You can chill. We can just eat lunch. Like, we can just talk about the lunch food. That's all we need to do right now. But there's definitely ways to show that you are cool and open and loving and accepting of people. But you don't gotta be too extra with it.
Actually, can you scratch my back? I've got an itch. I was like, oh my god.
I thought you were trying to match with me or something. I was like, what's happening?
No.
Okay.
You should cut off people who don't accept you.
Do you want to, like, before we actually see their discussion, do you want to chat about this one? This is interesting.
We should cut off people who don't accept you. Yeah. Period. Period. I am like that, but that's just like, I'm not actively telling people to do that, but also do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I guess I am. Like, I truly believe that this is not just about sexuality, but this is about you as an individual. Anything that like doesn't align with your chakra, we're living in this world and we need to all coexist within it. So we can't just be that, well, if you don't agree with me, I'm out. But we also can. As you grow up, you realize that your world actually is isn't as big as you think it is. Like, you have parasocial relationships, sure, but within your actual community, there are a few amount of people that you really trust and give your energy to. And if those are the people you're giving your energy to, then surely you want it to be people that, lift you up, make you feel good about who you are. So yeah, if people aren't, and they're within that circle, I think over time that does something to your psyche. Either you're draining because you're pretending all the time and you're realizing actually these people don't know who you are. You're fighting for a relationship when someone doesn't even know you. So what am I fighting for? You don't know me. I'm pretending every day I'm around you. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, they're kind of cute, but in my head I'm thinking, no, that person's cute instead. Like, this is me using an example. I think I'm pansexual. I could, you know what I mean? But I'm just like, I don't know. I think it is worth cutting people off, and I know some people are like, oh no, we shouldn't be pushing for that. It's dangerous. The left are trying to get people to cut their parents out who don't agree with them. Okay, bye mom, bye dad. Why don't you agree with your kid? Like,
literally, if I can give like a bit of a like metaphorical scenario for people who like maybe don't get what it is like, for anyone who's maybe an ally watching this or just who doesn't get the queer experience, think of it like, okay, you are an athlete you have been an athlete your entire life. You started playing sports just casually with your friends, but you eventually got into where you wanted to actually tell your family, hey, I want to be an athlete and I want to join sports and everything. And you know, your family actually lets you join sports, and they're like, okay, cool, that's great, and they attend your games and everything. And some of your friends are really cool with you, and they, you know, come to your games too, but you've got that one friend who's just like, you're not really an athlete though. Like, I don't see you run. I don't go to the games. I don't see you play games. And it's like, well, you're never there, so that's your problem. That doesn't make me any less of an athlete. You know, it's sort of like, just because you don't see something or you choose not to see something doesn't make it not there. And for the person who's having to deal with someone who's just denying the fact of who they are, you know, if I'm trying to be an Olympian one day, I'm not going to be keeping someone in my life who wasn't even trying to say that I'm an athlete when I'm doing sports every day. You know, that's not going to, you know, give anything to my life. That's not going to better my life in any way. So yeah, cut that person out of your life. They ain't going to be with you at the Olympics. You know what I mean? You know?
Yeah, for real. Started from the bottom, they still there. Yeah, we ain't bringing them with us. Like, that's my view. And I didn't know it was my view, but I've lived it now. I've experienced life from, like, openness, closeness, and, you know, I don't have much closeness in my life. And I'll say that's a privilege because I know that's not everyone's story. But I do have an open family, and I am lucky for things like that. But I do have, you know, through other connections, even some of his connections, like, we do have our own stresses, and I personally don't think it's worth it. I'd rather kiki with people who make me feel great. Like,
exactly.
And people say, oh, they just want to be surrounded by people who have found their blue hairstyles and their piercings. And it's like, okay, so what?
Yeah.
Like, also, so literal what? Thank you, my darling.
I know.
Okay, like, literally, so what? Why does it matter if we want to surround ourselves around people who make us feel good? We're acting like that's a bad thing. Like,
Literally.
how is that a bad thing?
Again, if I'm an athlete, let me be an athlete and be around people who tell me I'm an athlete. I don't want to be hanging around people who are like, no, you're just a lazy bum.
Yeah.
Like, that's not who I am. Stop saying that.
Yeah.
And
But
if
the
that's
thing
all you're
is,
going to say.
those people would argue, but you know, we have to be honest. Maybe you're not an athlete.
Yeah.
And they'll bring in those perspectives and be like, well, we don't agree with this, so why should we say this? And we're like, that's fine. You can not agree with it. But if you don't agree with it, can you not understand why my identity being debated is not something I want around me? Like, surely you can understand why that doesn't align with my chakras. Like, get out my spirit.
Yeah.
All right, let's press play and hear what these people got to say.
We all were like, because I agree to the extent that, like, I'm obviously speaking from a place where I'm able to be independent, and I know that I can handle myself.
It's a place of privilege.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I am 31, I live in a different city from my family, but I also am a kind of person that we tend to treat family, like blood family, like it's the end all be all, like they can never do anything wrong. It's some of the most toxic dynamics ever, and you're expected to just stay, or you're expected to keep giving that person access to you.
Damn, that's such a good point, that the family relationships that you're born into are often looked at and treated as defaults and requirements of life. And it can be so toxic. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It really is. Like, I learned from a very young age, as families who you choose. I've always been like that, and so I am someone who has like huge extended family with no drop of blood connecting us, you know, and that's awesome. You know, someone can love you the way a mum should. You know what I mean? And someone can love you the way a dad should. Someone can love you the way a sister should, and not be any of those things to you. And so why deny those people access if they're willing to love you in a healthy way? But I completely agree. I am not about that defaulting thing. And I'm not someone who's like also happy for people to like break away from their families, but I do think it's a necessary thing if honestly your family is causing you more stress than happiness. Then you shouldn't be there. No one should deal with that. There should be no reason why you should stick around for that. And culturally as well, I don't know if she's going to mention this, I do find that in, you know, African cultures, Asian cultures, sometimes there is that push of like, do not divorce, do not leave, do not get out of this relationship, stick with your family, keep your business to your business. And there are certain aspects that, you know, steer away from Western culture that allow people to feel they have to stay in those situations. she also brought up a great point about there is a privilege of saying I can cut people out. We can cut people out. You don't even live in the same country anymore. I don't live with my family. You know what I mean? Like, we live together, and so we can be like, yeah, all right, what's gonna happen if you don't speak to us? We're still gonna pay our rent and go on with life. But when you're 14 years old and mummy is your only form of income, it's a different story. So we are definitely talking with privilege, and I think it's great that she checked us.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's such a good point to make, that anyone who is able to cut people off for not accepting them can be in a position of privilege to be able to do that and have that not affect their life in any detrimental or serious way. Of course, any cutting off of someone is going to impact your life. It's a very big decision. And I think one thing that gets lost in the way that the discussion of cutting out people who don't accept you is viewed by people who maybe don't agree or don't understand the sentiment, is that they think it's just like, oh, like, they act as though the language is just, well, screw them, they're horrible, and you don't care about them, and they don't deserve any kindness or anything. And it's like, no, first of all, the person who's having to cut off that person from their life, that is such a huge decision that often comes with so much, like, pain, guilt, heartache, you
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Depending on the scenario.
Yeah.
I also want to say, so this year, this past summer, like in June, I went to a Pride event in Denver, and like I walked in and I just started to cry, like it was just so great seeing like all this like love and support of just from everyone, and like it just really made me like, I just can't wait like be on the other side. So like it's because it's always there, like it's always in the background when I'm with the parents and bring about relationships and all the dating and stuff, and it's always there, and it'd just be nice to not have that hanging over.
Oh, he's so nervous.
Yeah.
Even knowing he's gonna be like, his identity is gonna be hidden, it is so.
It's such a vulnerable position to be in any space talking about the experience of being closeted, and especially to be on the internet talking about it. I give a lot of props to everyone who's on this panel, because that does take a lot of strength, and
For sure.
you know, that's very brave of them, because these discussions are so important. Yeah, I think what he was saying, and the gentleman before him, about, you know, just saying like, I'm still everything about who I am that you've loved prior to knowing this extra part of me. This extra part of me is just another addition. It doesn't take away anything from who I am. I still like the same things. I'm still the same person. I think that's such a good thing for people to remind themselves of if someone comes out to them, is this doesn't change anything about who they are. This is just me getting to know a bit more of who they are. Yeah,
you've had that. I've never really had that of like, are you a new person? It's just like, what do you mean, am I a new person?
Yeah, I have had that question. I've had that. I was met, you know, in coming out as trans and being more open about my queerness, I was met with the question of, who are you now? You know, and who is this person? And it's such a bizarre position to be put in, because it's like, well, I'm me, and I'm telling you, like, not only am I myself, but I'm even telling you this is who I am, and then to be met with, well, then who are you? That's so confusing. It's such a weird question. It's like, did you not get what this conversation was? You know? But
I found that so weird.
It is.
I think I hate that people have to come out. I hate that they do. I hate the pressure of it. I felt it, you know, religious mum and stuff like that. It's a lot, but I can say hashtag no regrets. No regrets.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. Like the freeness, the fact that we are able to have a channel where we say we're queer, and that's a lot of people ask us, you know, why do you say you're queer? We're like, we're queer because we couldn't always. Yeah. And doing so genuinely feels like a privilege. And for those who are sat there in a closeted section, I can promise you that regardless of which way you take to come out, if you do or not, life is better when you're 100% you. That's all I can say. Take your time. Don't rush it. It takes a while. A lot of people, you know, question dying in closet. Some people want their parents to die. You know, we've both discussed some of the really intrusive thoughts. I'm not saying that we wanted our parents to die, but like, oh, maybe we'll only be ourselves if everyone around me who judges me, who I think will judge me, dies. Like, the thoughts that you think to literally just love who you want to love is so, honestly, I think it's disgusting. That's where we're at. But I send nothing but love to everybody on this panel. It takes so much to come and talk like this. You couldn't have paid me millions to be on that side. I'd have been so scared that the blur wouldn't work. So the fact that they're trusting the process and coming here to have conversations that really do need to be had, again, my respect to everybody on that side and everybody on this side.
Yeah, really, really well done. Give us your stories if you're comfortable talking about your experience coming out. If you want to give any encouragement to those who are thinking about coming out, if you are someone who is thinking about coming out, please know that, first of all, you are amazing. Second of all, you are loved. There is a community out there for you. And whenever you are ready, whenever you feel the most safest, you will find the people who love you and accept you exactly for who you are. And that's what is the most important part. So focus on that and you will be okay.
Indeed. Drink water.
Eat carrots.
We love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.